Hi everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Gaia Project, the unofficial podcast about the board game Gaia Project. Here with you, as usual, Matteo El Templo here, and with me, Molfo, Simone.
Yes, I'm here. You know, Matteo puts on this very happy and enthusiastic voice, but the truth is today we're really both very tired, I think. But we've been working a lot. We're tired.
You're not supposed to say this.
But this will be an exceptional episode anyways, despite everything, despite all the tiredness, because we have so many things that we want to talk about today. Right, Matteo?
You're right. Yeah, it's quite an intense period. I think every fall in the year is something like this. But let's talk about let's relax. Talking about our beloved Gaia project. Yeah, we are a bit behind. We're a bit lagging behind the ERRATAs because last episode we decided to leave all the plays to Marco, talking about the tournament, and so. Speaking about the advanced tactiles episode, the fifth one, you know?
Right, we're positively traveling back in time now.
Yeah, a lot. But I received this during the last week of September, so a few days ago, or now that we are recording. Gregor Zeitlinger.
Yes, of course.
Our beloved admin of Board Gamer Space.
Yep, hello, Gregor.
Wrote me that he followed our advice and rushed the 2 victory points for each research bump, you know, and it worked wonderfully. I have his game right here, and to be honest, he was playing Taclons, so I don't know how much we helped him, but he scored the insane amount of 215 points.
215. Kudos to Gregor as well. Then
impressive. I'm impressed. Our listeners are way stronger than we are. I think
they are taking our weapons and using them against us to way better results. I have to say the Taclons are more, let's say, familiar than the Gleans are with this type of scores, but still, yes, the 2 points per technological advancement tactile can really help you in getting to these heights.
Yeah, I'm speechless. Please don't do that when playing against me, Mr. Spock. That's I'm a bit scared by this. The last one is for you, and is
somebody insulted me. Like, would Molfo stop saying this stupid shit?
You wish it was, but no. This won't be so easy to deal with because it's Caspi. Casper writes us a lot, and I'm very happy about this.
Yep.
This is about the last episode, the one with Marco.
All right.
He's referring to the moment where you were talking about the auction in Gaia. And your parallel with the gambling games such as poker. And he points out one thing, which, I mean, it's not, I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer this. And he says that there is a crucial difference between the auction in Gaia Project and gambling games. Poker enthusiasts, please forgive me. I am not an expert. I think it's a gambling game. But he says that there's a crucial difference because here you don't have hidden information. There isn't hidden information because everything is open, as it always is in Gaia Project. While in poker, for example, you have hidden information because you don't know which cards people have in their hands. I think I know the answer to this, but I won't help you.
Well, yes, right my answer to that is that I was making this parallel with poker, not because of course the dynamics are different in certain respects, but the point is that even in an auction in Gaia Project, you have hidden information in that you don't know when or if the other players are going to bail on the auction, and that's the main point. That's the main factor that introduces an unexpected element of randomness in the process. You might end up being stuck with a faction you didn't want to play in that specific scenario because you were expecting the other people to raise, the amount of points, but they got frightened and bailed out. And that really depends on the person that sits in front of you. Like if you're playing online, of course, that's virtually sitting in front of you. And so my point is that with auctions, you can, depending on the people, like the actually human beings that are sitting around the table of Gaia project, sorry, Gaia project. They should think about renaming the actual game.
Yeah,
but anyways,
we should have called this podcast, I don't know, Frank. So wait, anyway, go on. Sorry,
Frank will be my next podcast. I don't know what about, but I will call it Frank. And so imagine two games of Gaia project being played simultaneously with identical setup, identical settings, but different people playing at the two tables. So the auctions could go in two very different directions because of the attitude that these people have towards the auction system and risk assessment in general. So this is why I'm always a bit skeptical when people come to me and tell me that auctions are an objective system. They are. Objective is really not the adjective I would use in this situation. And so this is basically my answer to Kespi. And Thank you for your constant source of feedback on our episodes, Kespi.
Indeed. Well, that was sophisticated. I was just thinking that you basically don't know many gambling games, and so you just name poker because that came to your mind. But
yeah, also.
So I got you then.
And also that.
I said that this was the last one, and it's somehow is correct. But there's one last person I want to answer to, and that's Steve, because we have been a bit unfair towards Steve up to now, because he almost always tells us something about our episodes, and we never named him until now in this episode.
Yeah, so, Steve is very active. Steve is very active on the Discord. But I think to be fair, I think we named Steve once about, I don't remember about what, but I think his name came up. Anyways,
this one is for me because he gave us a lot of feedback about a few points of the lantids guide. And this time I want to answer a bit more extensively. The first point he raises is that he doesn't get why the 1 ore and 2 power tokens booster is not good round 1 in our opinion, because it fixes both of their problems, the lack of ore and the lack of power tokens. I think I said that a lot in the
lantids episode.
In the lantids episode, yeah. I quickly recap it here. Again, I think it's a very good booster for them, but not round 1, because what I don't like about things like that booster is that they rely a lot on what other players will do. You can foresee some charge that you will get, but up to a point, you cannot say with certainty that you will get those 12 charges the moment when you need them. And that's why I don't like it. Of course, in the right situation, it can be good, but that's not what I recommend to someone.
Some games, they start with these clusters where you have 4 people with their starting mines, all adjacent, all within 2 to one another. And so in these kind of games, that everybody's going to charge a lot. And so maybe in that circumstance, you can make the specific play. You can take the two power boosters, but otherwise it's risky. It's not undoable though.
The other thing he says is that he finds that going up navigation 2, placing 4 mines.
Yes.
So thus ending up round 1 with 5 mines on the board, and then going up economy 1 is a better start than the one I advised. Now, it probably is in a vacuum, but I thought a lot about this, but I stand to my suggestion because there are 2 problems with his idea. The first one is that it's a bit of a risky ROI option. It's very risky because, you need the resources for an extra mine. So placing 3 mines is already not super easy on its own, because you also have to build your planetary institute first, of course. But then if you also have to build a 4th one, okay, maybe you can sacrifice the QIC you get from going up navigation 1, but you still need two extra credits, and that's again relying on some charge or for the 7
it's the
credits.
Same. Yeah, it's basically the same argument we were making before.
But
I mean, that's good. You can do that, but only in certain scenarios.
Yes, but I think there's an extra reason, and this one is that from that moment on, you already have 4 moves of your mines, which cannot be upgraded on the board, and it will limit your options even more for the subsequent rounds, So if you have, say, sectors, you already have 4 mines which are gone for good and are stuck where they are.
Yep.
If there's a round bonus for mines further in the game, you will be even less flexible for that, and it can hamper your federation forming and sector colonizing. So again, it's probably better again in a vacuum, but I don't know. It really depends on the situation. Anyway, as I said, if you are planning to go 5 mines round 1, you probably do not need to listen to me. So yeah, sure you can, but I still don't think recommending that here. Anyway, those were good points. Try those if you are familiar with lantids. There are good ideas. I still won't recommend them, and still will recommend going up economy 2 and then science 1 if possible.
All right.
But now, for this episode, please remind me, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about everyone's favorite orange faction, which obviously... the orange faction, the other orange faction, not the one that we do not name, not the one that we have sworn an oath never to name again, but the other orange faction. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course. So this is like a Geoden episode, right?
It is exactly like a Geoden episode. It's so much like a Geoden episode. It's actually a Geoden episode.
The Geodens, great. So what can we say about Geodens? I mean, what I know about Geodens basically comes down to the fact that they wear full body suits, and
they do.
And that's it. Because I for one am one who really looks forward to this guide, because I think that I can safely say I can play 13 factions of Gaia project. The other one is Geodens, because I really have no idea about them, and that will show you in this episode. So
there's one piece of information I can give you, right away, Matteo.
Great.
And I think everyone who listens to this will benefit from hearing this. So if you take the Geodens board out of your your Gaia project box, the physical copy of the Gaia project, of course that you own, like if you take out the orange board and stare intently at the Geodens, you will realize that not only they wear full body armor, but also they have a cog stuck in each one of their shoulder armors for whatever reason.
You're joking? Is that true?
No. Yeah, it's true. They have 2 cogs sprouting out of their shoulders, and I hear Matteo typing. He's looking for Geodens on Google.
Because I don't.
And I'm sure that that cog plays a fundamental role in their anatomy and biology and what we don't even know if they're biological or robotical. The truth is concealed to us.
But that's true.
Yeah,
I never noticed that. I thought they were like tubes, tubings. No, but that's fantastic. Do you think that this is a Rick and Morty reference?
To what's the name of the Gearhead? Oh yeah, yeah, might be. I don't know. No, because Gaia Project is older than Rick and Morty. I think it's older than the Gearhead episode anyway. So, but yeah. Anyway, so the Geodens are not an easy faction to play, and you need every edge you can get. So focus on the cogs, because the cogs are going to help you.
Now that my mind has been blown by this, I will look at the Geodens board. I will try not to look at the cogs, because those are mesmerizing. And well, what can we say about Geodens just by looking at at the board and not at their artwork. This game really needs more background. I pray for that. Please give us.
Yeah, I don't know why nobody ever developed a background for Gaia project. That's really a pity. But anyway,
I will do if they pay me. I promise. Yeah. It's I swear I will do. Just give me some bread and whatever. But so Geodens, they have a faction ability, which is you start at level 1 of the terraforming track.
Yes.
Plain, easy. They have initial resources which are pretty vanilla because they are 15 credits, 3 knowledge, which become 4 and 1, 4 credits, which become 7, and then 9 because you already are at terraforming 1. So at the beginning of the game, you have 9 or without any booster bonus. This sounds like, easy.
That's great.
It sounds like an easy academy start, but we'll get into that, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Then they have a pretty vanilla board, but when they open their Planetary Institute, the Planetary Institute grants them the usual extra power at the beginning of each round, the charge 4, which is common to all Planetary Institutes, and then they get the signature ability, which is every time you colonize a new planet type, you instantly gain 3 knowledge points. And this is Geodens in a nutshell, I think. Am I right?
Even outside a nutshell. There is nothing more about Geodens than the 2 things which we just said. You start to terraform in 1, which is very good because it means you're starting with 9 ores, and you have their PI ability. Remember their PI ability for those of you, or maybe just started playing Gaia project. The PI ability only works on new planet types, so it's not any planet type that you colonize after you open the PI. If you already colonize a yellow planet before opening their PI, that's gone for good, and you won't get 3 knowledge points for getting another one.
Okay, so basically they cannot get 3 knowledge points from the orange planets because they start on them, of course.
Exactly.
Then we have 9 planet types overall in Gaia project, which means that they have a potential of 24 extra knowledge points throughout the whole game. And if you are wondering which is the 9th type, that's the Lost Planet. So 24 knowledge is a lot. It's a bit reminiscent of the lantids PI ability, but in that case, lantids cap at 16 knowledge. The problem is that while lantids are basically sure to place all of their mines if they want to, for Geodens, it looks like it will be a bit harder, won't it?
Yes. Let's say you won't be able to get the Lost Planet every game, of course, because you have competition at the top of the track, but it is reasonable to expect that, in certain games, you can be fairly sure that you will get to 21 extra knowledge points because you will be able to colonize every planet type. But 18 is a very reasonable expectation.
I see. Both 18 and 21 are nothing to sneeze at, in my opinion.
Exactly. They're really good.
Okay, so can we say something in general about Geodens, or maybe we want to directly pass at what should a good map for Geodens look like?
Yeah, I will tell you a little anecdote that will bring us to the topic of the Geodens map and the setup for Geodens in general. This became something of a joke between me and Matteo some time ago, a recurring joke, because as I said, the Geodens are not an easy faction to play. So if you were expecting, this guy to be just like, whatever, you just pick Geodens and you win. That's EVITs possibly, but not Geodens. They're a difficult faction to play. They have plenty of problems. In some ways, they have similar problems to their orange brothers, to the faction that we will not name, but that sits on the other side of the orange board, and we will see why that is the case in a moment. But as I was saying, there was this recurring joke. I once found on the internet that this meme that was going around. The meme was titled, somebody had written a book about how to defeat fascism with the power of love. And then you open the book and you find the first chapter of the book, and the title and the chapter goes as Well, the first thing you have to understand if you want to defeat fascism with the power of love is that it is impossible to defeat fascism with the power of love. And then you turn the page and it's chapter 2, the power of incredible violence. And so we turned these into a Gaia Project joke. In our version, the meme, the book was How to Win at Gaia Project Using Geodens. And the first chapter reads, well, the first thing you have to realize is that it is impossible to win at Gaia Project using Geodens. So you move to chapter 2, and chapter 2 is the power of tachlons. So this is a joke, but also tells you something important about Geodens. As all the factions in Gaia Project that are considered, the weak ones, the weaker ones, you picking Geodens is really context dependent. And if you are in doubt whether or not you should pick Geodens or something else, my recommendation is don't pick Geodens. Don't pick Geodens unless the setup is really, really good for them. I rarely play Geodens, and I played some excellent games with Geodens. Actually, highest score I've ever scored in a 4-player games in Gaia Project, I scored using Geodens. Ever, yes.
Oh,
even
awesome.
Yeah. Was in a 4-player games was 224 points using Geodens against Terran and Ambas. So my point is Geodens can really do good. They can perform well, but only in a limited set of circumstances. So be wary. When you pick Geodens, you have to consider plenty of factors. So let's start with the map, since Matteo was asking.
So this was just to motivate you at the beginning. So first thing, do not play Geodens. But then, if you really want to play Geodens, maybe you could listen to the following hour or so. That's a great start.
Exactly. This is the start. This is the start of our episode. Yeah.
Motivational episode on Gaia Project. So, what map should I look for? What kind of map?
The map you want to look for, that's not an easy question to answer because it really depends on the type of game that you want to play as Geodens, the type of opening that you are going for. The Geodens are really versatile in their openings. There are several different strategies that you can follow. And so that will define the type of map you are looking for. So my recommendation for playing Geodens is do not play Geodens. If you don't have a map that allows you to take at least a couple of orange planets, if you don't have another 2 orange planets within QAC distance, right? So within 3 hexagons. And that is because my recommendation is not to open your PI first round. So in the first round and possibly your second round, you're confronted with the problem that you need to expand, you need to place new mines on the board, but you want to avoid colonizing other planet types besides orange because you want to do that once you have opened your PI. So if you don't want to open your PI round 1, which I do not recommend in the slightest. So if you don't want to do that, then look for a map that has several orange planets within QAC distance. On the other hand, if you want to open your PI round 1, then look for a map that gives you easy access to Gaia planets, but especially yellow and red planets, which are your step 1 terraforming planets, right? Yellow and red. Depending on the configuration on the map, you can even get, there are certain setups where you have both a yellow and a red planet adjacent to an orange one. So that's really good for you, because if you manage to get the step booster round 1, and you also manage to get the 1 terraforming step power action, you can colonize both round 1. It's not easy to do that, but sometimes I've seen it done. It can happen.
Yeah, I think that maybe at the beginning of the game, people generally want the 2 ores and 7 credits power action. So you really don't need them, because the booster will give you 2 credits and you start with 9. So maybe I don't know. It's
exactly. It's not difficult because of that, because you can do without the other 2, very important round 1 power action. But do not forget that the step 1 power action is pretty sought after in round 1.
We are looking for a map where at least, ideally, 2 orange planets are within reach of the QICs in round 1 if we do not want to open PI, which is what you do not recommend. Okay, but do we like clusters, like maybe the other faction dashboard does?
Orange. Well, clusters are particularly important for you if you want to open PI, as I said, round 1. If you want to start with your PI round 1, then it's good to have clusters, because in that way you can reach other planets more easily, and you can terraform them, and then gain the 3 knowledge points per planet type without spending QICs. We are relatively cluster friendly, but we do not desperately need them as other factions such as lantids or Baltax.
I see. You started talking about the step booster, of course, which is good if you have the idea to open with your PI. But what about the other ones? What ones should we look after if we, I don't know, maybe if we do not want to open PI?
Okay, so this also depends on the round scoring objectives. If you want to open either Academy or PI round 1, then of course the 4 points per PI or Academy booster is a very good one, because it makes you charge 4, which is really good round 1. It means you already start with 2 powers in bowl 3, and it's very easy that you can get whatever you need to get from the power actions. And it will also net you 4 points at the end of the round. So that can be a very good booster for Geodens, and it is not uncommon for Geodens to open with one or the other of their big buildings. That could be something that you want. That depends on the opening you want to do. If you don't want to open with one of your 3 points building, then you have, of course, if you want to open PI, then the step is really good. If you don't want to open PI, then the step is the last booster you should take, probably, because you're just wasting one of the easiest planets that you have to colonize, and that will give you no knowledge points. So range is can be very, very good, especially if you don't want to open with your PI, because maybe that will give you access to yet another orange planet. So it's really good if you can have an early expansion round 1. So range is good. Only caveat to that is, if you want to open your Academy, you might be left without enough ores to open yet another mine. So think about that in advance. Do not, the worst thing that can happen is that you take the range booster and then you do not have the resources to build that extra mine. So be careful about that. But having said that, the range booster also gives you, a little help with your power cycle. So maybe you can get the resources out of that. A valid alternative to the range is the 2 credits and 1 QAC. I mean, that's always good.
You rarely,
exactly.
It's hard to be wrong with that booster, actually.
That's a very good booster. I would not recommend round 1, of course, the 2 power 1 ore booster, because Geodens have a very generous power cycle, because at the latest you should open your PI round 3, probably. So you will get plenty of extra powers, and you don't really need the extra ore, because you already start with 9. That's actually the greatest thing about Geodens is that you start with 9 ores, and you really are not worried about that in the same way the other factions there are. So all the boosters that give you extra ore, like the 2 power 1 ore booster, the 1 ore and points per mines booster, or 1 ore and points per train station boosters, they're not really good for you round 1.
And also, there's another very good booster for round 1, which is 1 ore and 1 knowledge. Do we like that or not?
Not our first pick under any circumstance, but that's always a good booster, because 1 extra ore, 1 extra knowledge, sooner or later, maybe not round 1, but sooner or later they're gonna be handy. Especially, so consider this: if you want to open your PI round 1 and you're planning on getting at least another planet type besides orange, then that's a really good booster, because it already gives you 1 knowledge. And if you add to that the 3 knowledge that you get from the other planet type, whatever it is, then you get to 8 total knowledge round 1. That means 2 bumps on a tech track. That can be useful for you if your plan is to colonize 1 and just 1 planet type. round one, and you open your PI, and that booster still it's okay if you want to open Academy, because you need 11 ores to open Academy, so one extra ore, it always comes handy. And if you open Academy 1, then you will get 3 knowledge entering round 2, right? And in this way, you already have 1 extra knowledge that will be very useful round 2, because it will give you 4 initial knowledge round 2.
Okay, so it looks to me that there are not real super necessary boosters in the pool if you want to pick Geodens. Maybe the step 1, I don't know, or maybe one between the range 3 and the QIC.
If you want to open PI, the step 1 is really what you want to go for, or 4 points per PI and charge 4 power. If you get that booster, you are sure that you will be the first one to get your hands on the step 1 power action. So that's also, and it gives you 4 points. It grants you access to the Terraforming 1 power action. So that's really good booster for you, round 1, if you want to open PI. But if you want to open Academy, I would definitely go for the 4 points per Academy plus charge 4.
Are there any specific scoring round boosters which we like? I don't know, points per mine, points per trade station, points per lab.
Right, yeah, that is connected both with the topic of the map and the round boosters. And this is because, as I said, Geodens are a hard faction to play with. Geodens are a hard faction to win with. So you want points. You are desperately looking for points because other people sitting at the table next to you have picked very strong factions and you haven't, and now you're in a competition for your life and you need points if you want to bring home the game. So my suggestion is to try to follow, the instructions, let's say, that the round scoring objectives gives you very strictly. Try to get as many points as you can out of the round scoring objectives.
No, wait, I meant, sorry, I meant the, are there any specific boosters which you pick and then give you points when you, at the end of the round, which we like in particular, or?
You mean in the game in general?
Yes, no,
Not just in round 1.
Yeah, the round boosters.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I moved to the.
No, but that's topic. Okay. We're heading to that next. But I had just that specific question.
Well, of course, the one that we just mentioned, the 4 points per big building, is always good. But also, we do like 1 point per each mine, because Geodens have a good relationship with their mines. They tend to open a lot of them, and so that's a booster that can net us a good amount of points throughout the game. The Gaia, the points per Gaia planets one, that is not gonna net you many points, because Geodens tend to get 1, maybe 2 Gaia planets each game, no more than that. They're definitely not a Gaia forming faction. However, Geodens often find themselves in a situation in which they are desperately lacking credits. And so that booster being into play can be good on occasion for Geodens, because you will get 1-2 points out of it, you will get credits, and you will deny points to Gaia forming factions that are in the game, if there are any. So definitely not a round 1 take, but from round 2 on, you can consider taking that if you are in a dire situation concerning your economy, your credits economy.
I see. Okay, so, well, you were saying about round scoring bonuses that we are a small fish in a tank of sharks, and
yes,
so we are run after scoring, but from round 1.
Yes, I would say yes, from round 1. I mean, since the good thing about Geodens is that they are rather versatile with their openings, so use that versatility at your advantage, and look what the initial scoring conditions are. For instance, if round 1, if you have 5 points per big building, 5 points per PI, or 5 points per academy, then you should definitely consider opening with one of these 2. If, however, you have the 3 or better 4 points per train station, then you can open with 1 research lab and 1 trading station.
The so-called universal opening, 2 mines, 1 trading station.
The universal opening is not bad with Geodens. I played very good games with that open with Geodens. And that means that entering round 2, you're already planning on building your PI, right? So very good round scoring objectives for Geodens are round 1, trading stations, round 2, PI. So it's you can large buildings, exactly. So that can be really good for you. 2 points per mine, round 1. Well, if you decide to open plenty of, maybe if you don't open your PI and you want to, or even if you open your PI, there are situations in which you can maybe open up to 3 mines with Geodens, you know, colonizing planet type, maybe taking 1 or 2 orange one, or colonizing 2, or even colonizing 3. That's possible if you take Gaia, yellow, or red round 1.
Yeah,
that's
maybe if they are very well placed and you grab the +3 range booster, maybe you can get up to 3 more orange round 1, but that's not easy. I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's the map at that point. The map needs to be really, really good. But yeah, that's doable. But my point is that is not the first thing I look for in a Geodens game. What I like in a Geodens game is round 1, 4 points per trading station, round 2, 5 points per PI. And at a certain point in the game, perfect scenario would be around round 5, even round 4. But round 4, round 5, 2 points per terraforming step.
The step round.
And yes, then you look for that in the late rounds. For round 6, I think is too late. It can work, but round 5, that is perfect. Then you terraform both your 3 steps planets that are gray and brown.
No, they are white and gray.
Yes, right, white and gray. So round 5, you terraform white and gray, and you net a total of 12 points plus 6 knowledge points. That's really good if you can pull that off. But the round 1, you don't really like that, because best case scenario, you can net 4 points. So it's not great. That's something that you want to keep for the late game. So I mean, you cannot keep it for the late game. You have to hope that the ordering of the round score objective is good.
I think that there are no factions which actually like the 2 points per step round 1, but maybe with Geodens we can hope to open with PI, get the booster, but we have to be 4th, because otherwise someone else will grab it and maybe score 4. But I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, that depends. Maybe there are other boosters that people look after, you know, even more than the step 1, even in a situation in which you have 2 points per step, because round 1, that's not really important. So
I don't think that I would pick Geodens anyway if the step round is not one of the, say, final 3 rounds, because
I mean, you can play with that without that, but that's surely an incentive to pick in Geodens. So my point is, no matter how you decide which path you decide to open, be sure that you can score points, since round 1 is very easy to prepare for, right? Before you even start the game, you should know how your round 1 will play out. So start planning for points with Geodens early on, because you need these points, because your abilities are not as strong as those of the other factions, and so you need to push harder for points. This is the same advice that we gave when we did the Glean guide. The difference with Gleans is that we urge you to push for points very early on, but the Gleans have a very easy way, when it comes to that, because their native ability gives them a very easy access to early points if the round scoring objectives are right. This is not the case for Geodens, unfortunately. So I'm making here a comparison with Gleans, and I'm saying that if the starting conditions are right, Gleans are a way more reliable faction point-wise than Geodens are. Because with Gleans, some games, you look at the map, you look at the round scoring objectives and say, okay, Gleans here can score, if nothing goes wrong, if nothing goes catastrophically wrong, here I can make a 170 plus Glean game. But that's very rarely the case with Geodens, if ever. Gleans sometimes they can go on autopilot on very specific occasions. But with Geodens, you constantly need skill. Geodens are like lantids. They constantly require skill and attention and careful planning if you hope to win the game with them.
I think that Gleans are also way better than Geodens at exploiting early bonuses. Like if Gleans have around 1, 4, or 3 points per Gaia planet, they will net a ton of points. But Geodens, there's no case in which Geodens will net a lot of rounds, because they can for sure grab some of them, but not nearly as many as Gleans would do. Do we have any other good late scoring bonuses? I was thinking about 2 points per technology bump, because we get all these knowledge points with the extra planet types, and maybe we're good at that. I don't know.
Yeah, the point is that you get a lot of points out of terraforming new planet types, but this point that you get, they're scattered around the game, so there is no single round in which you get some 15 crazy extra knowledge points. So 2 points per technology advancement is always, is always nice. Maybe you can do a couple with the extra knowledge that you get if you plan that in advance, plus research lab or an academy. So, but that can be really, really good in the turn in which you take the 1 knowledge point per planet type basic tactile.
Yeah,
the Geodens really like that basic tactile, and you want to take that as late in the game as possible to gain as much knowledge from it as possible. So you get that round 6, and round 6 you have 2 points per advancement, and I imagine that by that time in the game you will already produce 6 points per round of knowledge.
No, we'll see that.
Plus and then you colonize 1 last planet type, and then you take the 1 knowledge point per planet type tactile. That's gonna be a lot of points. Why not?
They'll pile up, of course. Okay, final word about scoring. This is rather important, and it's what final scoring objectives do we like? Well, my bet here is on the most planet types, isn't it? Because we're going after that anyway, so I don't know.
All right.
But maybe I'm wrong, because I'm so bad at Geodens.
From a certain perspective, yes. And you always see people doing that exact reasoning. Planet types is one of the scoring conditions, so I'm going to play Geodens because I have to go after that anyways. And so I will get extra bonuses from doing that, which is, of course, a sound reasoning, except for the fact that be careful, because if planet types is one of the final scoring conditions, then there will be a lot of people going after planet types that they would otherwise normally ignore, right? And you never know what can happen. Sometimes you see one crazy Etar, one crazy Terran going up terraforming and stealing, or taking the, I know. That's unlike, but I've seen more terraforming Terran games than I would like to. That sometimes happen. So that's the problem with Geodens. That's the problem with Geodens' ability. Yes, the problem with Geodens' ability is that it is, when we were talking about Gleans, when we were talking about planning your round 1, round 2, that's relatively easy. But Geodens need really long-term planning because they want all the different planet types. And it is, of course, relatively easy to predict that, or let's say, an Ambas or a Taclon is in play, and then you already know that yellow planets and gray planets, they're going to go rapidly because these are aggressive expansionist factions that like to get their around their step 1 planets, So that there will be a shortage of gray and yellow planets. But it's really hard to predict what your adversaries are going to do with respect to their step 2 planets. You never know when, the crazy Ambas or the crazy Taclon will get that orange planet or that white planet. That tends to happen in the mid-game, and that really depends on so many variables that it's really hard to predict if and when and where the hammer will fall. And maybe you were counting on having that white planet that at a certain point just disappears, and you cannot really plan for that in advance. So the Geodens have this problem that maybe they will find themselves cut off from a certain planet type they were not expecting to be cut off. Around round 4, at that point, it's free for all. I mean, everything can happen. Planets start to go that you weren't expecting people to colonize, and it really depends on how the game plays out.
Okay, so if the planet type's final scoring is in play, basically you will have lots of competition, but if you lose one planet type, you just won't lose for the final scoring. You will also lose your personal bonus, which is double trouble. Okay, right.
Double trouble, exactly.
No, I'm not sure if this is correct, but in that context, I would be afraid of possibly Xenos, Ivids, because Ivids tend to eat orange and red planets, of course, but also Xenos can be...
Yeah. Ivids are really one of your best friends, I think, because Ivids are extremely predictable when it comes to where they will go. So if Ivids are in play, Ivids tend to gobble up everything that is in their slice. Sooner or later, they will take all the planets left unguarded. But they tend to to remain fixed in their 3 or 4 sectors. So you just look at the other side of the map and say, okay, what can I do on the other side? But it's really hard to tell who are the Geodens' worst enemies, because everybody can take the 2-step planet that you want, and it's really hard to say. Well, let's say that Taclons and Neblas, of course, have a easier access to terraforming actions because of their wonderful power cycle, but in the end, it's hard to know. It's hard to tell, especially at the beginning of the game.
I wouldn't be scared of Neblas stealing my planets, because they are at the other side of the color wheel. I know that they will compete with me for the final scoring, and maybe they will win, because Neblas are super good at terraforming. But
yeah, but what I'm saying is that imagine that so Neblas have blue and white as their step 1. And so, no, sorry, blue and gray. And then they have step 2 is brown and red. Yes, brown and red. And you, as a Geodens, also have brown as a step 2, right? So that's what the point I'm trying to make. That if another faction is in play that has brown as a step 1, like maybe, I don't know, Bascots or Xenos, and then maybe they eat up 3 of those brown planets, and then somebody gets another, and then the Neblas get one that you were not expecting to, and you're done. You cannot get your hands on a brown planet. So that's what you have to look for. So in general, yes, you can play Geodens when planet types is one of the 2 main missions, but there are other scoring conditions that I think that can be good for Geodens, in particular satellites. The Geodens have a rather good power cycle. Even if they open their PI around 3, which is the latest, I'd say you should open it, you will still get 3 extra power tokens. If you open it around 1, then you, of course, get 5. And Geodens have a good ore economy, because they like to open mines. They like to have open mines. So and you can easily convert ores into power. So satellites is a good scoring condition for Geodens. They can definitely compete for it. Maybe not be first if some heavyweights, such Terrans are in play. But satellites you definitely like satellites as a final scoring condition. Sectors can be good on occasion, because the problem with sectors is that when you play other factions, you always end up having a couple of sectors where, maybe you take an 8, there are another 2 you could enter, but to enter those sectors, you need to colonize step 3 terraforming planet. You don't really want to do that because that's costly. The Geodens like to do that, or at least they have some extra reason in order to do that. And so why not sectors that Geodens can play? Buildings and buildings in Federation, I'd say they're average for Geodens. You're not particularly good. You're not particularly bad either. You can put up a fair competition. Definitely not Gaia planets. Gaia planets is not your final scoring condition. So I would go in general. I would go for Geodens if satellites is one of the main, and then maybe planet types or sectors or one of the 2 buildings ones. So they're versatile in this respect. They can do reasonably well on all final scoring conditions, especially satellites, I'd say, and planet types, of course.
Except Gaia, as you said.
And except Gaia.
But in the end, you convinced me about planet types, because I see a lot of stress, of bad emotions, anxiety. I don't want that. If there's planet types, I'll just pick Neblas, and I'm fine with that, or Taclons, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, since we're talking about planet types, let's get this straight. As a Geodens player, you should definitely go for both your step 1 planets, both your step 2 planets, and the Gaia planets. So you want to get 15 knowledge points out of your PI. Anything less than that is a failure. But when it comes to the 2 step 3 planets and the lost planet, of course, that's very situational. I see people overemphasizing the importance of getting the last 2 planet types. That's really expensive, guys. That's 4 ores for a single mine. It's true, you will get 3 knowledge points out of it, but is it really worth it? Do you really need these 3 knowledge points? So at that point, you should really start considering whether the benefits of terraforming that last planet type outweigh the fact that you have to pay dearly for it. And the same goes for the lost planet. I mean, I see plenty of games with this crazy Geodens rushing the navigation track like mad because they want to get the lost planet. But the lost planet is it's only better for you in that it's gonna net you 3 extra knowledge points. But if you destroyed your game in order to get there before other people, and the navigation track is one of the tracks on which you will get the harshest competition. So you really have to push hard for that lost planet. It's not always worth it.
Okay. So, I think that, thanks a lot, by the way. And up to now, I think that we have said a lot of useful things about Geodens, but I don't think that we really gave any useful tip to our listeners.
All right.
And that's because I think that we will go to the most important and, in my opinion, difficult aspect of Geodens, or at least the one where I personally failed, which means exactly nothing. But this is technology trucks.
Yes.
Because now I will say, okay, so, we're already there. We just have to rush the terraforming track as soon as we can, right?
Exactly.
No, I don't think so, because I don't think so, because out of experience, what happens to me is that I usually get to round 3. It's spectacular. I get maybe a lot of planet types, a lot of knowledge. And then something happens. My game starts to derail. And by half round 5, it crashes against the tree on the side of the road.
You have just described the typical Geodens game trajectory. So I have a little statistic for you. So these are very small numbers. They don't mean anything. But I went back to look at all the games that I played against Geodens on BGS. All right. So I was not playing Geodens. Somebody else was.
I'm very afraid because some of those are mine.
There are a couple. Yeah, there are a couple.
Super quick anecdote about this. When I was thinking about this episode, I started thinking, okay, but how did I win with Geodens? And I think that in my whole life, I just won a worldwide tournament, and I think that in my life, I have never won a single game with Geodens, and I'm not lying.
Well, if it's any consolation, it appears you are not alone, because I went back to look at all the games that I played against Geodens, and I found 30 such games. I'm talking here only about 4-player games. I found 30 games that I played against Geodens, and Geodens have won. How many of these games, Matteo? Can you just throw us a random number of games that the Geodens have won? Like, think one number in your head and then speak it aloud.
Okay. So, statistically, that should be between 7 and 8.
Statistically,
but that's an average. So usually, when you want to say that something is marginal, you say 10%. So I will try 3.
All right, the Geodens won exactly 1 of these 30 games, and when I say 1, what I mean is that they were tied for first place in 1 of 30 games. So they never won a single game out of these 30 games. But what I would like to point out is that of these 30 games, that I was not really interested in this fact. What I was interested in was the Geodens opening. So the opening that these players used in their game. And in 24 of these games, of these lost games, the Geodens opened their PI round 1. And then they rushed simultaneously terraforming and navigation track. So if you want to know how the Geodens are not to be played, that's exactly what you don't want to do, right?
That's exactly how most people play them, basically.
And that's exactly how most people play Geodens, because, I mean, there are... So the reasoning that stands, behind all this behavior is sound, because say, okay, I need to colonize new planet types, so I need a terraforming track. And in order to get to those planets, I need to be able to move around the map. So I need the navigation track. Also, on the top of navigation track sits the lost planet, which is really good for me, even better than it is for other people. And so I get a chance to get to that. No. No, stop doing that. You're just going to lose this game.
But I may also add that you say that, okay, I won't get much knowledge, but I get it by colonizing planets. So that's okay.
Yeah, that's...
I won't have much income, but I will place mines, and then my PI will give me charge, thus giving me resources, maybe one tactile. No, that doesn't work. That just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work. So when I was saying, don't open PI round 1 and start rushing terraforming or navigation, well, normally people start going up navigation before they start going up terraforming. That's really extreme. I've seen some Geodens game with round 1 terraforming rush. That's not gonna work. That I can guarantee you. Of course, I am not saying that this cannot work. I have recently so in the tournament, me and Matteo are playing right now the tournament, the EurAfrAsian Torunament that it's currently ongoing on BGS, organized by our good friends Arialito. Who was that played that amazing Geodens game? They scored more than 190 points.
I think it was Viscris, maybe?
It was Viscris. Yes.
It was him?
And they did exactly this. I mean, I don't know how the game played out exactly. I don't know which tracks they went up at the beginning, but they opened PI round 1. And they didn't open any research lab. So they didn't get a single technology tile. And up to round 4, they colonized a lot of planets, and they used the knowledge from those planets to get the knowledge that they needed to go up terraforming tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very good game, very nicely played. Viscris is, of course, an expert and accomplished player. Sometimes that can work out, but this is a very difficult game you're going to play. And I'm not going to recommend this strategy in the slightest. I know that we recommended this very same strategy when we did the Glean guide. So I'm making this Glean comparison for a reason. I was making it before and I'm making it again now. There is one specific difference. So with Gleans, we just said you expand like crazy, you build mines and trading station, you don't give a thought about research labs, and you just accept the fact you won't get a lot of science and you'll be fine with Gleans. And the reason that doesn't work in the case of Geodens is the reason why I think Gleans are a very underrated faction, is because the very good ability that Gleans have, it's printed on their board, while the very good ability that Geodens have, you only get after you open your PI. That means that round 1, the Gleans do not care opening their PI, and they can get all the mines they want on the board and enter round 2 with some crazy, 7 or 8 ore. The Geodens cannot do that, because the Geodens, if you want to open PI, then you have to pay for it, and you have to pay for it dearly. And that is the same problem. This is why I was saying that the Geodens have the similar problem to what the Baltacs have. Because both the Geodens and the Baltacs are the two factions in the game, probably, they have to pay the dearest price, the highest price for their ability. Because the Baltacs, in order to get their ability fully functional, they have to get on the top of the Gaia forming track, and it doesn't really matter how you do that. You can do that using, building academies, building research lab, using knowledge. But the point is that it's very expensive to get on top of one track, no matter what. And the Geodens, they have to open their PI, and once they have opened it, they still have to terraform progressively more expensive planets. So the idea the Geodens can, just forget about technology tiles and science and just focus on your native ability. Well, that idea is hampered by the fact that your native abilities is crazily expensive, while the Gleans one, for instance, is for free. But this is not the case for Geodens. So that can work. I'm not saying that cannot work, and Viscris just proved us that it can work. But
I think that just proved us that Viscris is a good player, because
exactly.
there are a lot of differences between the two things.
Exactly. This is not what I would recommend with Geodens. With Geodens, I would either recommend you open Academy, or Academy 1, of course, so you get some science, or you open Research Lab, the entry station, plus X mines, the number of mines that you can place on the board. These are two very good openings, and then comes the problem of round 2. So if you open Research Lab and Trading Station round 1, then of course you open PI round 2. If you open Academy round 1, I've seen Geodens opening Academy round 1 and a crazy PI round 2. That is doable and can lead to some spectacular results, actually. If I open Academy with Geodens, I tend to open PI round 3, also because opening it round 2 is really difficult, because you need a lot of resources that you most likely will not have round 2. So it's really, really hard to open PI round 2 if you open the Academy round 1, but it is doable. You can try that. Again, not the easiest strategy, so possibly not what I would recommend, especially to newer players. Maybe it's better to take it slowly, open Academy round 1 and PI round 3. But anyways,
I think it all goes down to, if you can do that,
yes,
okay,
if you can
do that. It's a bit like ETARS. Also, ETARS can open Academy and then try to open PI round 2.
Yeah.
If you can do that, that's great, but it's not a given at all.
Yeah, it is not a given. It also depends on round scoring objectives.
Of course.
So if you have large building round 1, large building round 2, then go for it. Go for it. 10 points in 2 rounds. That's great. But for instance, if large building is round 3, then that is a big incentive to wait and to open your PI. And of course, the problem is, what do you do in the meantime? So if I do not open my PI, this is what I was saying in the beginning, if you don't open PI around 1 or 2, you want to have a lot of orange planets that you can get to easily in order to expand, right? Ideally, round 1, you build your academy. Round 2, you expand on these orange planets. And round 3, you open PI and start colonizing. This is ideally a good Geodens game. But we were talking about technologies, technology tracks. So where do you go if you don't open PI? If you open with a research lab or with an academy, where do you want to go? That also depends on the positioning of the basic tech tiles, to which we will come in a minute. But I would say, so by now it should be clear that the Geodens have a lot of problems. Boy, the Geodens have problems. So you want to make your situation a little better, then you might want to go up one of the 2 income tracks that will help you greatly. So economy round 1 is very easy choice. You can get to economy 2, second step on the economy track. Even economy 3, the Geodens can do that, because the Geodens already start with 9 ores, so it's pretty easy for them to get the extra 2 ores that they need. And you just focus on the economy track, and you go up like that, like a rocket. You get 1 bump, then research lab, then academy. That also gives you the possibility to charge 3 extra power round 1. Maybe you need that if you want to open a mine.
Which you want to.
Which you want to, if you can to, yes, of course. And that will give you a spectacular round 2, because you will be at economy 3, 3 mines on the board, so you will get at a very minimum 4 ores and 3 credits. Plus, I strongly recommend the 4 credits basic tech tiles if you play in Geodens, because we already said that Geodens, they tend to have more mines open than research labs, and so they chronically lack credits, they chronically like money. So they also like the economy track for that reason, because it gives them some help in that respect. And also the economy track synergizes very well with the fact that they will very soon open their PI, and so they will get initial charge. When you get finally in the top economy track and you have your PI open, then you're like a Firac in that you tend to charge 8 at the beginning of each round plus and you get 1 extra power token. So normally the Geodens play with a very, very good power cycle in the same way as the Firacs do.
You were talking also about the science track. Isn't that a bit overkill if we already have our academy open?
Yes, but you can think of doing that at that point, the necessary condition is that you have access to the 4 credits basic tactile. But I did play Geodens game in which I rushed science round 1 and maybe started producing 4, 5, 6, even 6 knowledge points round 2. That's going to be, of course, a game in which you plan to score plenty on the technology tracks, of course. But that's doable. If you can also get, maybe you can get 4 credits basic tactile and 1 credit, 1 knowledge point. At that point, since you're going for it, go for it. Go for it, full tilt. Go big on science. That's doable. But normally what I would recommend is going round 1 is economy. The best thing that can happen to you is you go up like a couple of steps on economy and you build the trading station academy. You take both the 4 credits income tile and the 1 credit, 1 knowledge income tile. So you already have 4 knowledge round 2, and then you take 1 bump on navigation. Round 2, you go navigation 2, and you have this crazy expansion we're talking about. Then you can get to a lot of orange planets because you should have a couple of QACs. By then you're already navigation 2, so you can get to planets that are 4 hexagons away.
Yeah, the great thing about Geodens is that since you start with 9 ores, it's not a necessity to get the 1 or 1 QAC tile with your lab in order to open your academy. I mean, it's much easier to not use that. So, yes, I think, and I'm sure that you had, but it's actually easier to get the 1 knowledge, 1 credit, and 4 credit tile going up economy. You will not need any more credits throughout the game, I think, because you're netting 8 at the beginning of round 2.
Yes. You can do that. 7, 8.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I would recommend with Geodens in a vacuum is going up economy round 1. And if you want to take another bump somewhere, then the other bump can be either navigation or science. If you don't have access to the 1 credit, 1 knowledge tile, then science gives you the extra knowledge that you need to go to 4 round 2. Maybe. Definitely not terraforming round 1. You will need that later on in the game. You can start worrying about that round 3, round 4.
When you add your PI, I think.
When your PI is open, and you can also make do, with the power actions if you want to colonize planets before you have reached terraforming 3. Your power cycle is really good, so you can go for the 1 step, 2 steps power actions if you really need to colonize a planet. So yeah.
So you already said a lot about basic tactiles. Is there something else that we need? I mean, you recommended knowledge per planet types, of course, as late as possible, because we are going to get as many planet types as possible.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the game, you should consider that. Look where that tile is positioned. Is it among the 3 free tactiles, so that you can get it no matter what round 6, no matter which track you need to go up? You always have access to that. If not, where is it? Is it on the bottom of the economy track? That's a very bad positioning, because if you already get on the top of the economy track round 2, either you get the top of the economy, or you have to sacrifice one technological advancement, which is not good. So, be careful about that. Be careful where the 1 knowledge point per planet type is positioned, because you will delay taking that tile as long as you can.
Because I think that the best position is either one of the free ones, or maybe the QIC track. Because if it's below science, that's a problem. Because if you get, say, 8 points out of that, or even 7, and you top the science track in the same at the same moment, you will lose knowledge points because you will gain more than 15, and that's a pity. That's a shame.
Yeah. So always look out for that tile. As again, we said Geodens tend to have a problem with credits. So counter that by taking the 4 credits basic tech tile. The 1 ore charge 1 tactile, if you take that round 1, is also very good. I mean, round 1, that tactile is always very good. All the income tiles are good for you, especially if you get round 1. See what's available. 4 credits, 1 ore, 1 charge. Charge 4, why not? That's another very good tile. That's always good, basically. Of course, you don't absolutely in the slightest care about the 3 points per Gaia planet, so you can ignore that. What else? 7 points, that's as good as it is for any other faction, so we don't really need to comment about that. And I think that's it, pretty much.
Yep. But there's one very important thing that still needs to be said about advancing on the technology tracks, which is that in general in this game, are the tracks which we decide to climb are heavily influenced by which advanced tactile sits on top of each track. So what should we look after if we are Geodens? I think that they could be one of the faction which could be benefit from the 3 point per mine because they build mines late. No, I don't know.
Well, concerning the specific tile, yes, but the Geodens go for quality over quantity. And so since you have to spend a lot of resources for your mines because you want to colonize all these different planet types, then you do not necessarily end up opening a lot of mine, especially in the late game. And also that there's often a lot of competition for that advanced tile. So, and here's the problem with Geodens. You are not particularly good at anything. You're not particularly good at climbing tech tracks. You're not particularly good at forming federation. There is no guarantee that you will form a federation before someone else do. There is no guarantee that you will get on the top of a track before someone else do. And so there is no guarantee that you will be the first to lay your hand on the advanced tech tile that you want. So what I recommend is look carefully at what other factions are in play. And this is why, as all the weaker, between inverted commas, but weaker factions, the Geodens are better if picked the 3rd or 4th, because you can better assess. We've said that you're a little fish in a tank full of sharks. You want to know which type of sharks you're fighting against. Are Taclons in the game? Are Ivids in the game? These are your 2 main enemies because they are really fast at climbing technology tracks, forming federation, and stealing advanced tactiles from you. Itars and Terrans are less dangerous because they tend to compete for different tracks. Not necessarily so, but they tend to do that. So this is why I was saying before that a Geoden opening Russian science is a possibility, not because it's better than economy. It probably isn't. In a vacuum, I recommend economy, but on the economy track, you can get very dangerous competition from, you will get dangerous competition from EVIDs no matter what, but there is normally less competition on the science track than on the economy track. So if there is something really good sitting on the top of the science track, you can think about playing that game. You rush science round 1, and maybe not round 3, but round 4, you can get the advanced tactile that you want, and probably you will be left alone on the top of the science track. That really depends on what tile we're talking about. If it's 3 points for federation, then the Ivids are gonna come after you. Well, no, they're gonna precede you, as a matter of fact.
There's absolutely no way you can grab that if Ivids are in play.
But the economy track, you got the danger of Ivids, you got Taclons, you get Hatshalas. Pretty much every faction can rush early economy and steal something from you. And of course, you can compete. The point is that I'm not saying that you cannot compete and win. I'm saying that you have no guarantee that you will do that. when you're playing Ivids, when you're playing Taclons, you know that you stand very good chances of winning the competition because they're just better at what they do. The Geodens have no such weapons in their arsenal, so they have to be more careful of competition.
They have to be more sneaky, more.
You want to be sneaky when playing Geodens, exactly. So what are the advanced tech tiles that? Well, so this is the bad news. The good news is that Geodens are very versatile in the advanced tech tiles that they can go for.
Oh, great.
So 2 points per mine, the good old humble reliable 2 points per mine is good for Geodens because they tend to open a lot of mines. Very few training stations, so their mines tend to stay open on the board, and so you can aim for that. 2 points per technological advancement, of course, is really good because you will get some extra knowledge points in addition to what a normal faction gets. So why not? I mean, that we've already commented on this in the advanced tech tile episode. That tile is basically always good, especially if you can. Good. And if you rush science, then that becomes crazy good. And also because remember, you will get a lot of points from the 1 point per planet type basic tech tile. So that's yet an extra reason because of which 2 points per advancement is good for you.
Okay, so I have to ask you now, do we want the advanced tech tile about 1 point per planet type when we pass? If we don't want that, I wonder who wants that.
Okay, yeah, the point is that sometimes we want that, but the truth is that there are other factions that are better than us at scoring points out of that. And when I say other faction, what I mean is actually Taclons. I played several crazy Taclons games in which I scored 25 or more points out of that. And the Taclons are really one of the few factions that can do that. And they can do that not also because they're really good at terraforming, but also because they can get that very early. Because the Taclons have this advantage that since they are so rich, they're filthy, unimaginably rich. Disgustingly rich. They normally manage to get an advanced tech tile round 3 if they really set their mind to it. While other faction, they normally have to wait until round 4. And that makes a difference when it comes to, one of these tiles that gives you points over time.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that it cannot work with Geodens. So for instance, the good thing about that advanced tech tile is that normally you get 0 competition for that, because who cares about that tile? It's not that good anyways. So if Taclons are not in play and that is on the top of the economy track, well, people are probably willing to leave that to you, right? I mean, you can get some troubles with Achalas. I played some Achala games in which I took that tile, it was on top of the economy track, and I played a good game with Achalas.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, I mean, it's 1 out of, 100, but yeah, that can happen. So
I think I could pick that with Neblas as well,
And you can pick that with Neblas, of course, because of all the reasons we know. Even if that tile is on the top of the science track, then you are sure that you will get 0. No one is going to, rush science in order to get 1 point per planet type. So you get that round 4, and maybe you can, I'm making a conservative estimate here, but let's say 4 points round 4, 6 points round 5, and maybe 8 points round 6. So it's 18 points. That's a good advanced tech tile. That's worth it. Get very little competition. You get it round 4. You play, your normal game. You don't need to colonize more than 4 different planet types by the end of round 4, and you still get a decent amount of points out of it. Why not?
So what we don't like are the trade stations related ones, right?
Well,
and of course the 2 points per Gaia planet. Maybe we can take that to deny it to a Gaia faction.
Of course. Anyone can take that to deny to a very strong Gaia former, but we're not actively looking for that. And we definitely don't want the 3 points per trading station. We might want the 4 points per trading station. One, if, that's a very good tile that anyone can take round 6. Round 6, you open all of your trading stations for no reason at all, and then you get that and you score 12, 16 points. That's a backup plan, I would say. Not something you are actively looking for. 3 points per federation, of course, is really good, but let's be serious. There are not great chances you will be the first one to get to that. And as I've already said, the 3 points per mine, that's situational, that you have to evaluate your situation, you have to evaluate your economy. If you have a very good economy, you can plan to open plenty of mines, then take it, but not my first choice. With Geodens, I would go for, as I say, 2 points per advancement, 2 points per each mine you have on the board. Why not points per planet type?
Okay, so one last thing, and then I will let you go to the final consideration. Maybe we can chat for a few minutes about the tournament. But with Geodens, do I expect to top the terraforming track? And should I pick Geodens if the tile on top of the terraforming track is the 12 points one? Because I told myself I will never pick Geodens if the 12 points Federation tile is on top of the terraforming track. But by listening to you, I'm thinking that it's not really that important, is it?
No, I don't think it is. And but I know why you thought about that, because the Geodens are famous for often not being able to put the third federation on the board. And the reason why they're famous for that is that most people play them just going up terraforming and navigation. And that brings abject poverty upon the Geodens because it's really a tough game. You have to colonize plenty of expensive planets, and you don't get plenty of resources because you haven't climbed the economy track, right? So I often see Geodens struggling opening their third federation, and that's one of the reasons they tend to lose plenty of games, because it's really hard to win a game with only 2 federations on the board. And
I would say it's impossible unless you have Firax in general.
Yeah, the Firax are the only ones that do that with some consistency, right? Somehow consistently. But the Firax also lose a lot of games. Let's be honest about that. As much as I love Firax, I mean, I really enjoy playing Geodens. I think it's one of the funniest factions to play, the most challenging factions to play. But no, I wouldn't say that the top of terraforming track is a priority for you. It is good, as it is for everyone else. You have an advantage. You already terraforming one at the start of the game. Why not going for it? But don't push too hard for that. I mean, if you have to destroy your games in order to deny somebody else the top of the terraforming track, no, don't do that. Go aim at something else, I would say.
I see. Okay, so do we have any final considerations? Do you have any final advice to give to our listeners who are going to play Geodens, notwithstanding our guide?
No, I just want to recap what we said. Don't focus too hard on terraforming and in the early game, both on the terraforming track and on the map. I don't recommend opening PI with Geodens. Try opening Research Lab or Better Academy. Try and get in some very good basic tactiles. As we said, it's very important is that you focus on scoring round bonuses and the points that you can score during the. And we really didn't address that question, but again, look for that at the beginning of the game. And if there are 2 rounds of Gaia scoring bonuses, then maybe that's not the greatest Geodens game, because even if you manage to get Gaia planets in those rounds, you will get 1 or 2. So it's between 6 and 8 points, and everybody will compete for Gaia planets in those rounds, making it even more difficult for you to get the 1 Gaia planet that you really want, because you want the 3 knowledge points. So, you have to seriously consider the round scoring bonuses and the order in which they are placed. I'd say that's important with Geodens. And also, don't pick Geodens as a first pick. That's rarely a good idea. Not because they cannot win, but because you want to know who else is in the game, because you want to know what you can reasonably compete for in terms of advanced tactiles, especially.
But I think that's normal. There are situations which basically deny you to play some factions. So nothing special.
Exactly.
Great.
So this is it. As far as Geodens are concerned, I'll say this is all I wanted to say.
Thanks a lot. Maybe I will give you some feedback about how I won my first Geodens game after this. I hope so, seriously.
Do you have a Geoden in your current tournament game?
Oh yes, of course. I'm still at the first game.
Mm-hmm.
In my game, ERRAfRAsian, I think it's pronounced more or less like this, took Geodens as first pick.
All right.
As first pick, he rushed the reforming, and we're at round 5. He just took the 2 points per advancement on the science tracks, which was on the top of the terraforming track. He's at 32. Has the round 5 is almost over for him because he just has 8 knowledge and.
All right. How is he doing compared with other players in the game, point wise?
He's at 32.
How are the others faring?
We have Nitz with Hadshalas, who is at 29. Then there's me with Nevlas. I'm at 50.
Right.
And the first one is Bardo Pondo because Bardo took cleans, so he's at 60.
All right. So it's still I'd say rather open, although you and the Gleans clearly have an advantage. But we'll see how things shake out.
The map was really terrible for Geodens if you ask me. I don't know, but I think that he took them because planet types and sectors were the mains.
All right. Yeah, that can be good for Geodens.
For me, I can say that I picked Nevlas because there was the 3 point per lab on top of the science track. My love with Nevlas.
And
round 4,
you got it.
Round 4 I passed, scoring 18 points from both the booster and the advanced side.
It's always nice when that happens.
Problem is that it's round 5, as I said. Round 1 I managed to open PI and lab and get in the charge for but I think I made every possible mistake.
I remember
the worst round 1 with Nevlas in the last years, I think. Now at round 5, my income of credits for the next round is exactly 0. But I have 8 powers in bowl 3, so I think I can manage something.
All right, we'll see how that shake out. I remember to those who are still listening that the tournament we're currently playing is a very weird format in that round 1. So the first game of the tournament, everybody plays whatever they want to, but starting from the second game, you have to play one of the factions that was originally selected by one of your opponents in the previous game. So all 4 players eventually get to play all 4 factions in all 4 games. I was asking about Matteo about Geodens because probably one of the next 3 games it will be his turn to play
the next one because I'm 4th and he is 1st. So
all right. So
I'm super scared.
Well, at least you can benefit from our Geodens, from a new shiny bright Geodens guide. I have to say, in the game I'm playing, so I'm still a bit confused by this format because weird things happen when it comes to the selection of the factions. So it was a very Gaia-oriented setup. In Group D, we got this Gaia, one of the main missions. There were 2 points per Gaia on top of economy. And there were Gaia scoring bonuses on round 6. So a heavily Gaia-oriented game. And the first 2 players got Ivitz and Ambas. And I was 3rd pick. So I thought, well, I have to get a Gaia forming faction because if I don't, the 4th player will be left alone Gaia forming and it will be unstoppable. So I was between Terrans and Etars. They were both, I think, really good choices. I ended up picking Etars. I don't even remember why. Well, normally because I play a lot of Terrans game and not many Etars games, so I want to go Etars for a change. And also because I was afraid of the competition of Ivitz on the science track, and I was right about that. So I was expecting Terrans. I mean, the 4th pick for play 4 was Terran.
Maybe Baltax, I don't know.
Baltax had a very, very bad map, so it was not an option. So it was, for me, it was obvious that player 4 was going to pick Terrans, but player 4 picked Lantids. And I cannot imagine a worse setup for Lantids.
I remember
the 2 main scoring objectives are Gaia planets and satellites. So what the 2 possibly the worst scoring conditions for Lantids. And the setup is terrible, so there is nothing that speaks in favor of Lantids in this game. But of course, the reasoning is sound because he thought, well, he picked Eaters. He will win. I will get to play Eaters. I will win another game. And now I pick lantids. I will lose, and he will have to play lantids sooner or later. He will lose, which is, I mean, it gets a bit circular after a while. But yeah, the point is that people can do unexpected things in this format. So of course now I'm about to finish this game with a stellar ETAR scoring. I will score more than 200 points. Can't give you the details right now, but it's already clear that it's going to be beyond 200 points. The lantids, I have to say, Carioca played a spectacular lantids game, considered the initial setup, and I think he will get to at least 150 points, which I was not. No, seriously.
I mean, no, seriously. No, I trust you. I trust
you.
You
had seen the original setup, I would have placed lantids between 120, 130. So I think that 155 or something is going to score something like that. That is already amazing. And he managed to place 15 satellites on the map, which is really, really incredible for lantids. But even then, I don't think that the lantids stand a chance of ever winning one of these 4 games. So we'll see how things shake up, and everything in the end will depend on what Ambas and Ivids, because it's to me it's clear that the lantids will lose every game, and the ETARs will win every game. So it all depends on how the Ambas and Ivids perform, and I cannot wait to see that.
Well, I think that maybe in that context, Ivids could try start Gaia forming, but
they did. They did.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they will.
They did a good Gaia forming game, and I mean, in general, they played a good game, the Ivids, but it was not enough to compete with the ultra power of unchained ETARs, left alone in Gaia forming half of the galaxy.
About our Geoden, I have to say this, and also with respect to what you just said, in this map, the orange planets are all with 4 spaces between each other.
Wow.
And I think that like 4 of them are exactly at the edge of the map, or not exactly, but more or less.
You see, but this is the fun part of this tournament. The people will take, will pick factions that have very bad setups and then say, well, everybody's gonna, have to go through this. So
okay, no, I was exaggerating. No, 3 of them are
all right.
2 of them are on the border. The third one is almost at the edge. Then there are, but they are all within, I think, 4 or 5 spaces. I have no idea what to do.
Well, with at least we know that the Geodens had this crazy good game in another group. So there are 4 groups currently playing. Me and Matteo are in group D and group A, and I don't know much about what's going on in the other 2 groups except for this amazing Geodens game, Viscris. Congratulations again, and I really want to see how that if someone is able to replicate the result that Viscris got in the first Geodens game. And of course, we will keep you updated on the proceedings of the tournament as the weeks progresses. Yes.
Okay, so I think this is it.
Yes, we did it. We did it again.
Can we make a little sneak peek about our next faction guide?
I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even know that I know. I don't even know that I know. That we know what our next faction guide is going to be.
That's just because I'm really into talking about Neblas, if
if
there's some interest.
So there is a Nebula episode coming our way sooner than later.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Let us know what you think. If you're into the Nebula's episode, or if you prefer something else, of course, we are always listening at the feedback that you give us. We gave you the lantids episode. In the end, it was.
But also the Geodens one was asked for. So
all right.
I don't see why not. But for now, what we can say, I think, is thank you all for listening to us. If there's still someone listening to
after all the
of course
chatter,
and hear you again on the next episode of Gaia Project.
Goodbye.
Bye.